are playing the Marlins.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to Road to the Blue Map Week 2, presented by Little Pink Houses. Little Pink Houses started with the concept, it takes a woman's touch to make a house a home. Our licensed builder and main designer are women. We not only build a great home, but we act as a designer, assist in fixture choices, and finishes through the build, out, or reno. Basically, a one-stop shop for luxury renovations and new homes construction. Let us help you make the hard decisions that normally you pay an interior designer and architect to do over the cost of the builder. Make sure to check out Little Pink Houses in Guntersville. We appreciate their sponsorship here for Road to the Blue Map, right here, presented by Average Joe's Sports Talk. We are back live at Wenzel's. This time we're out on their outdoor deck. You've seen us inside, where you can go and eat on the inside, but weather's starting to cool down. Fall's coming. It's about to feel great outside. And so no better place than this outdoor patio area here at Wenzel's in Guntersville, right beside the lake. Great spot to come and visit and eat. And we appreciate West Long and Wenzel's for allowing us to be here each and every week to give you Road to the Blue Map. Week 2 coming up here, Bo. I mean, we talk about it every year. Season gets going, and next thing you know, you snap your fingers. It's week 10, and we're now going to get started with a lot of region matchups this week, and a lot of teams will now start making that push towards trying to go and win a state championship and get into the playoffs.
Every single coach I've met with this week has the same message. This is a new season. Every single one of them. Some of them's 2-0, some of them's 0-2. Some of them's won in blowout games, some of them's gotten blown out. They both have the same message. This is a whole new season, and this season starts this week. So let's go ahead and kick this off with a Thursday night game that we have. We're going to go ahead and kick this one off with Mae Jemison at Fort Payne. And in years past, you look at this game and you think, man, this is going to be a massacre. This is going to be a blowout. Things has changed a little bit with Mae Jemison. They've hired Rico White away from Anniston. He comes in and inherits an 0-10 Mae Jemison team from last year. But now, here's what's special about Rico White. He didn't just come by himself. He brought Bradley Ball. They've actually got a couple of guys from Anniston that lives with Coach White that has transferred over there. So this is not the same Mae Jemison team that we've known in the past. But they're going to face a different monster this week with Coach Elmore and Fort Payne. They have been clicking on all cylinders to a whole unconscious level, Caleb. In 2 games, they have put up 105 points in 2 games. Dax Vanderdorn, their quarterback, is a big reason for that. He threw for almost 500 yards in a loss against Scottsboro. And then last week, they beat Etowah. Everybody in our area knows all about Etowah. Year in, year out is a powerhouse in 4A and a blue blood of North Alabama football. Well, they went to Attala last week and won 54-27. So this game will be very interesting. A little bit different look from Mae Jemison, but it's going to be tough sledding at Fort Payne this week, and we will be in the house for that game. Back to you.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun there on Thursday night. Another big matchup. I'll be doing this one for the AHSAA TV network on Thursday. It'll be your AHSAA TV game of the week on WOTM, My68, and all the other channels that you can find it. Also on Roku, Apple TV, Fire Stick, any of that type of stuff. Elmore County traveling to Sylacauga. This is an Elmore County program that, since Kyle Caldwell took over last year, has done nothing but just get better and better and better. This is a program I got to see 2 years ago against Davil to start the season. Davil went in and dominated 48-7. They did not look very good. Kyle Caldwell has come in, and if that name sounds familiar, he was a star at West Alabama and, was one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback to ever come through West Alabama, and has been at multiple different places now at Elmore County. He's going to bring a very, very potent offense in. They've scored 56 and 62 first 2 weeks of the season. Wow. Dominant win over Marbury to get things started. They beat a Taugaville that has a ton of athletes out there, 62-0 last week. They ended up going 7-4, which, that record may not sound just fantastic, but it was such a turnaround from the year before. I look for them to take some big steps. And then for Sylacauga, this is a program that has won a lot of games and right now really struggling. They've lost 14 straight games dating back to 2021. They lost their last 2 of 2021, went 0-10 last year, and have started 0-2 this year. They have Coach Chris Smelly, who comes in, was at AHSAA in Tuscaloosa for a couple of years, has now made the move down to Sylacauga, and they're really starving for a win. So should be a really good football game on Thursday night. And if you're sitting at home looking for some football to watch, make sure to try to tune in there on WOTM for the AHSAA TV Game of the Week.
Next game is going to bring us to A.H. Parker and Coach Frank Warren, who is a great friend of Average Joe's. We actually went to the game this last week where they played at Legion Field versus Ramsey in the Stop the Violence game. That was actually named Stop the Violence Classic. And what a fantastic atmosphere. There was probably anywhere from 8,000 to 10,000 people there. There were still people coming in at halftime. It was such a packed atmosphere. Parker started out 2-0 this year. They're going to Jackson Olin. This Jackson Olin team has struggled a little bit since Vakakis left. I mean, to say the least. They're 4-7 last year, and this year they're 0-2. They've come out of the gate and they haven't looked very good. They lost 21-6 to Pelham, then 35-8 to Hartsville. So not the start they're looking for, and things is not going to get any easier because Parker is good on both sides of the ball. And when you look at that game last week, when they played Ramsey in that game, they won 20-17, but we're talking about the 5A state champions that returns, I don't know how many starters, like 80% of their starters are better. And this is going to be a really tough sledding for J.O., and Parker's not the team you want to face when you're trying to get off the snide, so to speak, if you're winless.
Should be some really fun games there on Thursday. Now flipping the script over to Friday, we'll have Donahoe traveling to Raglan. Donahoe has started 0-2. They got beat 40-13 by Weaver. And as we've seen, this is a Weaver program that has taken a lot of steps since last season, really improved. I'll get to see them on Friday, and we'll talk about that game here in a little bit. But going to Raglan, Raglan lost to a really good Vincent team. I mean, like we talked about last week, it's the Vincent athletics program that saw their baseball team go and compete for a state championship this past year. So they've got a winning attitude. They've got a winning mindset there. And they went and played Vincent pretty well on the road there to get things started. And then last week they kind of turned things around, 13-6 over Southeastern. And so a Raglan program that's not used to being down 6-5 last year in Coach Wes Tidwell's second year there. In year 3, you got to feel like they're looking to take a very big step this year, get back to competing for championships like we've seen Raglan before. Really good opportunity here against Donahoe. And then for Donahoe, you lost 24-20 to Glencoe. 40-13 to Weaver, a Weaver that probably surprised you a little bit when they watched film from last season with how they looked early. Like we've talked about, a lot of coaches said, hey, wipe the slate clean, new season, and that's how Donahoe needs to approach it this week. It should be a really fun region matchup there on Friday night.
This next game is a very interesting game, especially from last year's standards, then coming over into this year. Spring Garden's going to Wadley. Last year, Wadley actually got the victory over Spring Garden. It was a tough loss. Jason Howard talked about that loss and how bad it hurt his program at the time. Well, now there's a new coach at Spring Garden, and Coach Ragsdale. They're coming off, they're 1-1 right now. They're coming off a really tough loss to Coosa Christian last week, 21-6 at home. But if you read between the numbers with Spring Garden, they're really good at bounce back games. They're also really good in these blue blood games. You look at Wadley, and yes, they are 2-0. They beat Horseshoe Bend 35-7. They beat Ramburn 49-21, but they were 6-5 last year. Have they improved that much to step up and beat a Spring Garden? Albeit last year they did beat them, but on paper, if you looked at the point spread or line on that game, that was a bit of an upset. So now, one thing about Coach Ragsdale that I think is a blessing to him is to go ahead and get that loss out of the way before these region games start. And to lose to Coosa Christian, I know that he's got his guys dialed in. Now they're going to listen a little bit more. It's going to be a very interesting game, and I want to see how this group of Spring Garden Panthers bounces back. Because, we know how they bounced back last year. They ran the table all the way up until the Coosa game. So I want to see how this group of Spring Garden Panthers bounce back. Back to you.
Valley Head will be traveling to Decatur Heritage on Friday night. Valley Head lost 15-0 to get their season started to North Sand Mountain, but turned around last week, 56-0 win over Section. This is a Valley Head program that went 10-2 last year, and Coach Charles Hammond in year 6, so he's really established his program. He's got that program exactly where he wants it, and this will be a huge win for them if they can go to Decatur Heritage. You look at what they've done the first 2 weeks, 63-15 over Section, 55-0 over Carbon Hill. This is two teams that had some similar results there against Section, and so should set up for a fun game. You look at Decatur Heritage, year 2 for Coach Nikita Stover, who played at the University of Alabama, played for Coach Saban there, and starting to kind of get his footprint there on that program, and has done some big things here in the last 2 years. And so should be a really fun matchup there for Valley Head, and really looking forward to just seeing how this game goes for both these programs who are, for Valley Head, you're trying to repeat what you did last year, make it even further. And then for Nikita Stover, you're trying to get this program back into the postseason, go make a run, and really start to get a lot more belief around that Decatur Heritage program. So that should be a really fun matchup there on Friday night.
Coming into last year, they were the odds-on favorite to win that region. They wasn't even close. Everybody said it was Decatur Heritage to lose. So, yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. This next one is going to be Coosa Christian at Galesville. Coosa Christian is 1-1 on the season. Galesville sitting at 0-2. This is very, very weird, very unique game right here because Galesville, and I say this out loud, Coach Knapp's one of my favorite coaches. He's one of the best coaches. He gets every bit of juice out of the DNA of the guys that he has out there. He's a grinder. He's an old school grinder. His dad's there. He was a legend there at Galesville. But for whatever reason, this year they've started out very, very tough. A 48-0 loss, a 47-0 loss, and then here comes Coosa Christian, the upstart, the new kid on the block that is loaded with guys, new uniforms and charter buses and all this. It's going to be a tough game, and they have moved this game to Thursday. That's an interesting fact. If those of you who do not know that, this game has moved to Thursday. It was regularly scheduled for Friday, so if you were planning on attending this game, you're going to have to go to Galesville on Thursday. This is not the team, so to speak, you want to try to get off the snide on either. Coosa limited to Spring Garden to under 200 yards last week of total offense. Teddy Whitmire has those guys dialed in on the defensive side. Mark O'Brien has these guys dialed in, period. They lost to Geraldine, who has proved to the state that they're for real now with a 17-6 win over 5 at 5. So not a bad loss at all for Coosa, but Coosa's got some things they got to work through too. They've got a lot of things they got to work through starting in this region play. So this is going to be an interesting game from both sidelines. Who can execute better? And Coach Knapp, show some signs of life. Somebody to get out there and make a play early and get in this football game and get in there and fight with it.
Reminder of this episode here is brought to you by Little Pink Houses. Started with a concept that takes a women's touch to make a house a home. Our licensed builder and main designers are women. We not only build a great home, but we act as the designer, assist in fixture choices and finishes, though the building out or reno. Basically a one-stop shop for luxury renovations and new homes construction. Let us help you make the hard decisions that normally you pay an interior designer and architect to do over the cost of the builder. So thank you to Little Pink Houses for their sponsorship here with Average Joe's Sports Talk. Another big matchup on Friday. Appalachian will be traveling to Cleveland. Appalachian beat Locust Fork 61-20. Had a tough one against Gaston this past week as they fall 35-0. They went 5-6 last year. Coach Neil Whittington's in year 3, and he's kind of got to be thinking, hey, look, we took a big step, got the week 1 win, but then we bounced back, don't have as good a performance. Now in year 3, he's looking for the consistency, and what better time to get that consistency than going into region play here against Cleveland. Cleveland, look, they started off the year with a pretty tough task. Playing against Aniana, they fall 55-24. They had an off week last week. They have a lot of things to work on. We're able to kind of fix those things. I'm sure you're going to see a different Cleveland team, and a Cleveland team that has fixed some of the issues that they've had, maybe changed some things offensively. You got Will Glaze in year 2, so they're still kind of getting used to his program there. So should be a fun game between those two teams. And for Appalachian, 5-6 last year, you get into the postseason. Obviously, you want to build off that. This is a big step right here. If you can get a win over Cleveland, another region opponent who made it into the postseason last year, and kind of take those steps toward getting a first-round win, getting to round 2, round 3, and trying to make a little run.
Ain't no doubt about it. This next game is going to bring us to Gaston is traveling to Southeastern. Gaston sitting at 1-1 on the season. Southeastern is 0-1 on the season. Southeastern lost to a tough Raglan team, which you just mentioned earlier, 13-6. But last year, this same Southeastern team was 10-2. Kevin Bird there is in his 6th year as head coach there. You flip that over, a 6-year tenure to about a 3-week tenure. 3 or 4 week, Reggie, with Coach Alan Beckett has only been at Gaston less than a month. I think it's less than a month, safe to say. He's already got a win under his belt, and that's saying something, and a double-digit win at that. He beat Asbury 34-14 out of the box. Now, he did lose 35-0 last week to a very, very tough Appalachian team, but I think a lot of people's going to lose to Appalachian this year because they're improved and they have a lot of good, hard-fought athletes on that side and guys, it's just what we like to call cornbread where I grew up. Cornbread, country guys that can play some football out there. So no shame in Gaston to losing that game, especially when you only had a head coach in place for 3 weeks. But this is going to be a tough game. This is going to be another one of those execution games. Who's going to execute? Who's going to make a play earlier? You know, Alan Beckett makes no excuses. We sat in with him last week for over an hour in his field house and talked to him about how fast and how rapid these things are moving at Gaston right now and how he's trying to flip a switch and get that program going in the right direction. And he said it best, Rome wasn't built in a day, but it was built one brick at a time, and getting bricks in place sometimes is some of the toughest things to do. So very interesting game. I want to see who executes better is going to take that one to the house.
Whitesburg Christian will be traveling to Eider. It's been a tough start for Whitesburg Christian. They lost 40-0 to Woodville and then 24-6 to Victory Christian. They went 5-5 last year, and Coach Jimmy Nave now in year 3. Obviously looking to take some steps forward with this program. And, 500 record last year, you would like to build off that. This will be a big step here against Eider. For Eider, they were off week 0. They beat Asbury 46-13, so a great start to their season with Coach Chad Grant there. And look, it's a program that went 2-8 last year, so you're already halfway to what you had last year. If you can go ahead and get a win here, start off the year 2-0, you're starting to build a lot of belief there in that program and a lot of belief for what they can do there at Eider this year. And so this game right here would be a huge step really for both teams. For Eider, getting a 2-0, and then for Whitesburg Christian, just getting a win in the season, a region win, and start building towards making the postseason where both teams were really unable to get to last year.
You going to lead that one off?
Yeah, we got Fife traveling to North Sand Mountain on Friday night. Not used to saying this about Fife. 0-1 right now on the season. 17-6 loss to Geraldine. And look, credit for Fife and Coach Benefield to schedule Geraldine. You know, this is a program that beat them, ended the winning streak, all that type of stuff. And they said, hey, let's go play them again. And they didn't shy away. Geraldine obviously got the best of them. It's a Geraldine program that has a chance to go really far this year in 3A. So nothing to hang your head about, and you don't have time to hang your head. You go play a North Sand Mountain team who can score some points and, can give you some issues this week if you do worry about the loss from last week and don't move on. Coach Benefield going into year 27 this year, which is just crazy to think about. He's been at Fife as many years as I've been alive. I've never seen Fife without Coach Benefield being the head coach, which is just crazy to think. So, he's going to have them turning it around. For North Sand Mountain, though, you have a big opportunity right here. You could put Fife at 0-2, and you talk about wanting your program to be talked about and want your program to get attention and be seen. If you can beat a team that hadn't lost very many games in the last 10 years, would be a big step for them. So it should be a really fun game there on Friday night.
And, yeah, that'll be a hard-hitting football game because North Sand's physical, and I don't even have to tell you Fife's physical. This next game is going to be an interesting game from the standpoint of two great coaches, two coaches that Average Joe's loves, that being Alan Heath and then Coach Pruitt from Pisgah, Luke Pruitt. Interesting game, though. It's a little bit different ends of the spectrum going into this game. Sandrock sitting at 0-2. They lost to Spring Garden 48-22 out of the box. That was a very tough inter-county loss. And then they lost 28-7 to a bit of a rival as well in Cedar Bluff last week. They finished 4-6 last year. Alan Heath obviously does not want to start out 0-3. But if you look across and you see what Luke Pruitt and his staff has done at Pisgah, it's astounding. I mean, they are rolling. We talked about this last week. They beat Lexington last week, 42-27, and then they went all the way to the semis last year and played Fife. They beat Aliceville, who we've talked about Aliceville on the hoof, the new sexy word about team looking good. Aliceville looks like a 6-7 or a 6-5A team with their starting 22. Well, Pisgah beat them in the playoffs. So Luke Pruitt and company has it going on there. This one, I think, and I know Alan Heath personally, really close. He wants to see his guys compete. Mm-hmm. Whether they win the game or not, get out there and compete. Get out there and hit somebody, make a play, do something positive. Let's start something. We got to start somewhere, and I think that's what Alan Heath wants to see his guys do is compete against Luke Pruitt and his Pisgah Eagles because they have been rolling, man. And somebody on that team from Sandrock needs to step up in that locker room and say, yeah, we're about to show up and play in this game. The next game we're going to talk about Cedar Bluff, who's 1-1, is at Woodville, who's 1-0. Cedar Bluff lost to Winterboro 33-7 in week 1, and then Coach Crane got his first victory, which we just pre-mentioned, against Sandrock last week, 28-7. Coach Crane is another one of Average Joe's favorite coaches. We've followed him as an assistant all these years. He was under Alan Beckett, who we just mentioned earlier. So he's definitely, tailor-made for that Cedar Bluff job. He loves it over there. He knows the kids. He knows the community. So, yes, it's a great place for him. And then you look at Woodville. Woodville beat Whitesboro Christian, who you talked about earlier. They beat them 40-0. Then they had an off week. Well, they finished 2-8 last year. Coach Joel Poole's in his second year here at Woodville. So, what a win this would be to start out 2-0. Could you imagine that coming off a 2-8 season last year? They could have their win total in the first 2 weeks of this season. That'd be phenomenal. The next game, Ernie Willingham, Teddy Helms, and the 78ers. Anybody from Collinsville knows what I'm talking about. Class of 78. Is it 78? No, it's 79. It's one of those 2 years. Teddy Helms, Coach Willingham, they all graduated that same year, and they say it's the greatest year in Collinsville history. But now they're all on the same staff coaching all these young kids that are not even near graduating yet, all these 8th and 9th graders they have on their team. But Collinsville, 1-0, played Galesville, beat them 47-0. Imagine that. They're coming out winning 47-0 in their first outing. Coach Willingham has done an outstanding job. He's in good shape. He looks good. He looks healthy. He had heart trouble in the past, but seeing him on that when I picture Collinsville sidelines, I picture him walking it, and that's what he's doing now. He's doing what he loves, and he's coaching his grandson amongst others out there, being 1-0. But here's a unique thing about this: they're playing section this week, and they're going to section. Longtime Collinsville assistant, longtime Ernie Willingham assistant, Riley Edwards is the head coach at section now. And Coach Edwards has definitely not got out to the start he wants. He's 0-2. He lost 63-15 to Decatur Heritage, and then last week Valley Head beat them 56-0. So it's going to be tough sledding for Luke Skywalker against Yoda this week. Going and beating Ernie Willingham is going to be a tough task for them going into this week.
Yeah, it should be a really fun one there on Friday night. And game that I'll be at on Friday night, Weaver traveling to Dadeville. Me and Bo actually, I didn't do this game. I did the Welborn game with you last year, but did this game last year. Dadeville traveling to Weaver. They kind of handled Weaver last season, but Weaver seems to be kind of going in a different direction now with Coach Kofer taking over. A huge win week 1 over Donahoe, 40-13, excuse me. And then a loss last week, 24-20 to Glencoe. This is the Glencoe team that beat them pretty handily last year, and they were able to play with them this week. So, really looking forward to this one for Dadeville. They get beat by BB Comer. They were off this past week. They had Reeltown scheduled, ended up canceling that game due to some circumstances there. And so for Dadeville, they've had a week to kind of work on some stuff coming off the BB Comer game. I mean, you know as well as anybody, BB Comer played for a state championship and really has expectations to get back to that game again this year. So a good test for Dadeville in week 1. Region game right here. This is a region that Dadeville won. They went undefeated in last year. What bigger chance for Coach Kofer and his group to go in, get a win over Dadeville, really set the tone for this season and kind of set the tone for the rest of the region of, hey, we're here to play this year and we want to see ourselves in the postseason. So should be a lot of fun. Dadeville went 11-1 last year. They didn't lose until the second round of the playoffs. Already have their first loss of this year. So after winning 11 straight, now 2 straight losses for them, you got to feel like in year 4, Coach McDonald wants to get this win and kind of show everybody else, hey, I know we lost week 1, but we're still the kings of this region and still feel like we can go and get a region championship. So should be a really fun game there on Friday night. It's going to be a physical game. I look for both these two teams to really kind of punch each other in the mouth and just see which one can last longer. So should be a lot of fun there. And then Sacs will be traveling to Beulah. This is a very important game for Sacs. Long trip. Beulah's down south of Auburn, so going to be a very long trip there for Sacs to get down there. How do you handle the bus ride? You started out 0-2. You haven't had the start that you've wanted, but you've played 2 really good football teams in Ohatchee and Sylvania. So you've challenged yourselves. I can tell you it's not a knock on Beulah, but Beulah's not going to be good as either of those teams. So can you go on the road? Can your seniors, can your leaders on the team keep this team together and go down there with the right mindset? That's kind of what everybody's going to be looking for, and should be a lot of fun there in that matchup. And then Randolph County will be traveling to Childersburg. This is a Childersburg program that's improved. They beat Mumford week 1, 28-22. They lost to Comer 34-6 last week, but the score doesn't indicate how close that game was. Childersburg played them a lot closer than that, and Comer kind of pulled away late in the ball game. That's a Childersburg program that went 1-9, but I was telling you earlier, I watched them against Dadeville, and the concepts that they were running, the stuff they were doing offensively, it looked good. It's just the execution wasn't there, and they would have a positive play and then get a penalty and go backwards and do stuff. So if they can kind of get that fixed, they can compete a lot better, especially with a team like Randolph County, who didn't lose a game until they played against Dadeville at the end last year in region play. They went 8-3 last season. Coach Pat Prestridge has now been there for 18 years, so he's really established his culture. The kids that are playing for him have never seen Randolph County without him being the head football coach there. So should be a good challenge. They have to go to Childersburg, but for a Randolph County program that finished second in that region last year, thought that they had some opportunity to go and beat Dadeville and be the region champs and be undefeated. Should be a big step for them if they can get a win here towards trying to set up another big matchup with Dadeville at the end of the season.
These next two games I'm going to talk about is very eerily similar to one another, and it's a veteran coach that has been doing it for a long time, and versus a young coach who's upstart and got his guys going in the right direction. We're talking about this first game is going to be Westbrook Christian, who's 1-0, at AHSAA, who's 2-0. Think about that for a second. So you're looking at Steve Smith, who left Piedmont with a five state championships under his belt at Piedmont. He leaves, goes to Westbrook. Well, what does he do in his first game? He beat St. John Paul II 42-7. Then he gets an off week to prepare for Chris Finley, who is now 2-0 out of the gate in his second year at AHSAA. They got victories over just mentioned Sachs 32-8 and Walter Welborn 26-7 on the hill last week. So Chris Finley has it going on at AHSAA. The interesting thing about this is you got Steve Smith, plays the game, gets film on his guys, then he gets an off week to prepare for you. Very intriguing matchup from a coaching standpoint. That game right there is a game that everybody needs to watch. Young coaches, new coaches. You want to see how that game transpires. That game is very interesting. And on the Steve Smith end of this thing, what better way to say he's on the map than to beat one of his former 3A Region 6 foes that he had trouble winning at Piedmont with. Honestly, he had lost a couple of games with them, as of the last couple of years to AHSAA. This would be a way to announce his outcoming, so to speak, at Westbrook. That would be a fantastic win for Steve Smith. And for Coach Finley, if he was to beat Westbrook with Steve Smith as head coach and go 3-0, that's a huge, huge win and a boost in momentum moving forward throughout the rest of this year. This next one, very eerily similar. Listen to this. Plainview 1-0, at Geraldine 2-0. You have Coach Pruitt, 300 wins under his belt. He's done it all. I mean, that guy's won games in multiple states.
Multiple classifications.
He is the father of Jeremy Pruitt, Luke Pruitt. He is. This guy knows football inside and out. Who's now facing an upstart Michael Davis, who is 2-0 and has announced himself this year. As he don't Michael Davis. If you know Michael Davis, he don't talk. He's silent. He lets his guys talk for him. Their performance talk for them. Talk for the community. You want to know about Michael Davis? Turn on the film. There's Michael Davis. He brags on his guys when he needs to, but he's not boisterous. He's not posting a bunch of social media stuff. Come watch him play. That's what he wants you to do. And to see this veteran coach versus this young upstart coach, again, coming off a 17-6 win last week at 5, this is going to be a heck of a football game. And I look for a very, very physical game. Very physical game on both sides. All right, this next game is 0-1 Mumford at Anniston. They're traveling to Anniston. We did the coach's show today with Rico Jackson. He was in a little bit of a down spirit, but he explained to me what happened in that game. We did not get to go watch them play at Andalusia last week. They ended up losing by over 30, but he explained to me some of the things that happened in that game, and it's crazy. I don't want to get into it right now. It's irrelevant because now the new season starts for them. But he knows Mumford is a rivalry of Anniston. He knows they're right down the road from each other. And Mumford lost 28-22 to Childersburg, which you talked about earlier. And last year they finished 6-5. Now, Rico Jackson in his first year at Anniston, lost to Andalusia bad last week, but this is not a bad football team. And a lot of people in the state in any classification going on the road and beating Andalusia, especially with the mistakes they made in the special teams last week. I look for Anniston to bounce back. Is it going to be enough to beat Mumford? I don't know. Anytime you play Mumford, you know they're going to be greedy. You know they got athletes, and they're going to get after you. So that's going to be a really, really interesting game.
Booker T. Washington will be traveling to Montgomery Catholic. We're very close with the Montgomery Catholic program. Coach Kirk Johnson down there. They got their hands full with this Booker T. Washington team. They lost to Trinity, but Trinity's a good program. Coach Granger Shook, who's now moved on to Pike Road, has really set a great foundation there with the Trinity Wildcats. And then last week, they dominate Tallahassee 44-0, and this is a Booker T team that has a linebacker that's committed to Auburn University. They always have athletes all over the field, and so it should be an interesting challenge for Montgomery Catholic. I would go out and say this is probably the biggest challenge that they've had so far this year, and that includes them going down to McGill to open up the year and winning 21-0. They dominated AHSAA Montgomery last week, who just hasn't been as good from a football standpoint here recently. But this is a Montgomery Catholic team who was 13-0 heading into the semifinals last year before running into Andalusia, who went on to win the state championship. It's a Montgomery Catholic program that was in the state championship just 3 years ago. Coach Johnson looking to get them back there. And if you can go and get past this test and pass it with flying colors, Montgomery Catholic's kind of gotten to the point where they don't just win games, they got to win in emphatic fashion. If they can do that against Booker T. Washington, they're going to open up a lot of eyes and let everybody know, hey, they're back to competing in 4A again, and we'll have an opportunity to go and do some special things. Montevallo will be traveling to Hale County. I want to give a shout out to Coach Ryan Locke. Used to be at Etowah and now over there at Hale County, year 2 for him. To me, he did a really good job last year. He stepped into a program that has not won a ton. He got them to 4-6 last season. They were right on the cusp. They actually didn't get in the postseason just due to a tiebreaker rule. Now this year he's looking to take another step. They went in a big direction. They faced a Northside team who's really good, where it's down at halftime, fought in the second half, came back, tied the game up, had a chance to win it, weren't able to hold on. They fall 28-21, but they used that second half momentum against Greensboro last week as they went out and just dominated 44-0. We spent a lot of time with Coach Blake Bourne at Montevallo last year. We know what kind of operation he runs. He runs a tight ship. He's a great coach, very good X's and O's guy. This will be a huge win for Coach Locke and his group. They lost 33-18 to this team last year, and if they can get this win at home, their first region win, big step into getting into the postseason, and really a big step into him getting that community to really believe in what he can do as a head coach there.
I think that both of those programs need that win.
Yeah.
Big time.
No, big time.
Big time.
Because Montevallo also didn't get in due to the same thing, a tiebreaker rule last year, and Coach Bourne wants his group to get back in.
Both of those coaches were sick after that. All right, the next game is going to bring us to Etowah at Asheville. And if we were to get in a time machine and rewind the clock to the beginning of the summer, and I was to tell you Etowah and Asheville both were going to be 0-2, you wouldn't have believed it. You'd have put your house on it. That's not going to happen. But that's the case. Now, here's what happens when you're 0-2. Again, we've talked about this. We opened the show talking about this. This is where it counts. This is region play. You got to win region games, and this is going to be a game that Etowah needs. Asheville definitely needs. This could be a program-changing win if Asheville and Coach Shep could get this win. Asheville has lost 41-24 to St. Clair County and 40-26 to Lincoln. First year under Coach Shep. Now, Matt Glover, this is going to be his second year at Etowah. They lost a shocker in week 1, 28-21 against Springville. And then last week they played a Fort Payne team that was I'd say a wounded animal that was very disgruntled after their close loss to Scottsboro in that Top Cat Classic trophy game. But then, they respond. I mean, they scored 50 against, or right at, I think they did score 50. Mm-hmm. They scored 51 against Scottsboro. So that's a juggernaut of an offense they have up there at Fort Payne. So, but, for Etowah, it's simple. Here's what it is. Play football like you know how to play in Attala. If you're from Attala like I am, and a lot of the people watching this show is, show up and play Blue Devil football. That's it. That's what you do. You play physical, you play fast, you don't back down to anybody. I remember the days when we were playing, it would play anybody, anywhere. That's what they got to get back to, that mentality. Listen to Coach Glover. He knows what he's talking about. You guys get in there, dial in, and on the Asheville side, Coach Shep, same thing. Somebody step up, somebody make a play, somebody do something early. Let's get some momentum going. The thing about Asheville is you've got the facilities, you've got the uniforms, you got the weight room. It's all into place. Now it's up to some guys to dig deep and pull it out and make this thing successful. Next game, Cherokee County 2-0 at Good Hope, who's 1-1. Sat in with Coach Kelly today. He was happy but not satisfied. He talked about plenty of things they got to clean up on special teams. They went on the road last week and beat Piedmont 26-7. When have you seen Piedmont get beat 26-7 at home?
Long time.
At home.
Long time.
And he went and did it, and not the best performance again from his group. They did execute, but they didn't do as good as they should. You know, sat in with him. Coach Kelly's one of those guys, once you get to know him, I can tell when he's satisfied. He really wasn't satisfied. You know, he knows what this guy's ceiling is, and can they reach that ceiling is the question. On Good Hope, they lost 49-32 to West Point. Then they beat Vermont 39-20. They were 5-6 last year. Coach Alan Scott is in his 9th year there at Good Hope. Good Hope is going to challenge Cherokee County up front. Coach talked about this. They're going to load the box. They're going to make Carson Tittle throw the football. Well, this is on paper. They're not wanting Cornejo to beat them.
I wouldn't want them to either.
That's on paper. Everybody has that same plan, but when the ball's kicked off, sometimes that plan goes out of the gate because of Cherokee County's line and Jacob Cornejo himself. Now, but without a doubt, he knows they're going to be challenged up front. Can Cherokee County answer that up front physical presence and take control of this, not only on the offense side of the ball, but the defensive line as well? Because they can't let Good Hope get in a rhythm either. Because, I mean, if you look right here, they've put up 20 and they've put up 49, or no, they put up 32 points and 39 points in 2 games. So they're scoring 30 points a game. You understand what I'm saying? So they're going to have to challenge them up front. All right, next game, Pleasant Grove at Winona. I actually spoke to Darryl LeBeau last week in Legion Field, very briefly, told him that we will be out to see him soon. We always like going to see Coach LeBeau. LeBeau started out 1-0, and to nobody's surprise, he's 1-0 because that's what Pleasant Grove does. They win football games. If you look, they won 50-14 this year over Smith Station. They were 11-2 last year, and if you ask Darryl LeBeau, that's a disappointing season. That's where this standard is. How many state championship appearances? Was it 3 in a row?
Yeah.
That he had? Well, then you look across the field at Winona. Well, guess what? This ain't the same Winona team. This is a 2-0 Winona team. They beat Sylacauga 38-7. They beat Midfield 39-0. 3-6 last year. Nicholas Howard is entering his 3rd year. They don't look the same. They don't feel the same. Darryl LeBeau is taking this game very seriously, and this is a game that Pleasant Grove needs to win because you need to keep that dominance in the Birmingham area.
Yeah, it should be a fun one there. I mean, as you said, this is not the same Winona we've seen here recently, and this is still the Winona program that has competed for multiple state championships in their football history as well. Moody will be traveling to Alexandria. You look at Alexandria, man, you talk about challenging yourself early in the season. They've done exactly that. Cherokee County, Jacksonville, and now Moody to get the season started for them. And they really don't have a break until about week 5, week 6 on a team that you really look at and go, hey, they should beat them. You know, I mean, they can win this game, but I'm talking about a should beat them game. It's a really challenging schedule for Alexandria, but it's one that could pay off in the end if they're able to get into the postseason in the long run. For Moody, they beat Pell City 28-24. They beat Sylacauga 31-17 last week. I actually expected them to maybe win that game a little bit more handily, and maybe that means that Sylacauga is starting to get a little better under Coach Chris Smelly there. Maybe there was a little bit of a letdown coming off the emotions of that Pell City game from the week before, but this is a Moody team that went 10-2, and Coach Jake Gaines' first year last year in a Moody program that had not won a lot of football games before last year, and so he took them a huge step last year. They're looking to take another step this year. And this will be a big step right here if they can win this game. They won this one 42-27 last year. It was at home. Now you have to travel to Alexandria. You know as well as I do, going to Alexandria is a different place. It's just something about being there. It's just games go different there, and things go crazy there. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing this matchup and looking forward to Saturday talking about this game when we do our Saturday show, because this should be a really fun one there between those two teams.
Next game is going to be Southside, or for our people around the state, Southside of Gadsden. Southside of Gadsden is 1-1, and they're going to travel to a 2-0 Lincoln. Now, I don't know when the last time we said 2-0 Lincoln was, but Lincoln has struggled as of late. But let me tell you this, Lincoln beat Talladega 31-7. They turned around and beat Asheville 40-26. The thing about that is they've not been in a competitive game yet. Well, Southside's opposite of that. They have played a very, very tough game right here in this backyard where we're at in Guntersville and ended up losing that game 14-10. But then they went on a Thursday night in front of I don't know how many people. There's probably $20,000 gate, and beat Hoax Bluff last week 37-12. Miles Holcomb in his third year at Southside. Unfortunately, we got the news Gage Neesmith is not going to be playing, so that's not good. But what is good is his teammates love him, that community loves him, and they're going to go out there and they're going to play their guts out for him. And how you do that, you line up and you run the football with the big offensive line. They got two D1ers on that offensive line up there at Southside, and you hand the ball off to Mason Teague, who's sitting at 451 yards. Yes, you did hear me correctly. He's sitting at 451 yards rushing in 2 football games. He's 15th in the nation, is what we've seen and what we've been told. But then, not only that, when they're not on offense, you're going up against Southside's. I'm telling you, these guys are a dialed-in bunch on the defensive end. Coach Justin Bowen has these guys dialed in across the board. Bowers is a playmaker for him. Titan Rich is a playmaker for him. And I could sit here and name guys all night long, but just know as a collective unit, Justin Bowen has these guys dialed in on another kind of level. I mean, look at these scores. Last week they gave up the late touchdown to Hoax Bluff. And then look at Guntersville. Guntersville to 14 is saying something at Guntersville. So, yeah, they're dialed in on that side of the ball as well. So, I look for a heaping helping of Mason Teague, grind it out, and some stingy defense in this game coming up.
Yeah, and while it's good for Lincoln to start out at 2-0, they have not challenged themselves the way that Southside has challenged themselves with Guntersville and Hoax Bluff here to start the year. And so this will be a big step up in competition. But if Lincoln can compete in this game, it'll tell you a lot about this Lincoln program as well. AHSAA will be traveling to Douglas. Should be a fun one here. AHSAA beat Albertville 34-6 and then beat Brewer 28-13. Lee Osment's now in his 5th year there at AHSAA, and it's an AHSAA program that's talked about throughout the whole entire state. Each year, when you talk about AHSAA, you know that they're going to be right there with an opportunity to go and compete, make it deep in the playoffs, and have a chance to go play for a blue map. Would be a good step in the right direction, get a region win right here, and beat a Douglas team who's gotten off to a good start. 20-0 win over Susan Moore, 48-17 over DAR. It's a great start for Coach Brandon Lyles and his group, but just like we talked about with Lincoln, this is about to be a big step up in competition for this Douglas team. But if they can compete with AHSAA and even get a win over them, it'll tell you a lot about where this Douglas program is heading. And, we all feel like here with Average Joe, this is a Douglas program that's really heading in the right direction with Coach Brandon Lyles. If they can go compete in this game, play really well, it'll show a lot about them. So it should be a fun matchup there with AHSAA going to Douglas on Friday night.
100% agree with that. That will be a huge win for them. This next game is going to be the 1-1 Boaz traveling to Scottsboro, who's 2-0. Boaz started out of the gate with a 43-21 loss to Jacksonville, but I'm telling you right now, you're going to hear a lot of that this year, people losing to Jacksonville. But we're going to know a lot more about Jacksonville this week because they're going to play Handley at Handley. So we're going to find out a lot about them this week as well. All right. Then they turned right back around last week and won in an inter-county rivalry 48-7 over Albertville. So that was a big win, a momentum win for them heading into the Scottsboro game. Well, Coach Sullivan and those guys are going to be dialed in, and they're going to have to be. And let me tell you why. Coach Bell in this Scottsboro bunch is unconscious offensively. They're running the flex bone, triple option, but they're averaging 50 points a game out of it. Yes, I said that correctly. They're running the flex bone, triple option, and averaging 50 points a game out of it. That's Nebraska 95 type stuff. That's unheard of. They brought back every offensive lineman. They brought back 9 guys off their defense and 2 1,000-yard rushers. Justin Thrasher, their first of all, they have one of the best play-by-play units in the state. They're guys that do their play-by-play. Justin Thrasher and Heath Loki and those guys, unbelievable guys. I talk to him each week on the final drive, and he talked to us about what this game means to them. Region play is what they had circled more than anything. So to start out with this Boaz opponent that is 1-1, albeit with a 48-7 win last week, they know how dangerous this Boaz opponent is. So I look for Scottsboro to give Boaz their best shot and vice versa.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how that game goes. Benjamin Russell will travel to Calera. Last week was a rough week for Benjamin Russell. We talked about them matching up with Central Clay. Coach Danny Horn going back to the place that he spent 9 years at there at Benjamin Russell, and he gave them the old Danny Horn special. I mean, they lined up in the wishbone. They took it right to them. And, I've been telling you that me being a guy that keeps up Benjamin Russell, that's what worried me with this group, was someone that was willing to line up, run at them all night. It's exactly what Central Clay was able to do last week. Had a big 20-6 halftime lead. They were able to get some stops there in the second half and hold on, and that's a huge win for them. I mean, they got beat by this group 33-14, and it wasn't as close as that score indicated last year. Benjamin Russell was able to use their athletes, really run around them. To me, it opened up a lot of eyes around the state in 5A that maybe Danny Horn's got another group that can get right back there to go compete for a state championship. He's one of the best coaches, if not the best coach in AHSAA history. 8 state championships, over 350 wins now, and just continuing to churn out great programs no matter where he ends up. And so a big win for them last week over Benjamin Russell. Now can they bounce back against Calera, who has just had a weird year. Gerard Holder took over at the beginning of August after their previous coach decided to step down right before fall camp was getting started. It kind of showed there in that first game with Spain Park, but we both know Spain Park's on the rise with Coach Vakakis there. 55-0 win for Spain Park in a game that was a 10-6 final 1 year ago. So it shows you how far Spain Park's come. We'll talk about that game with Reggie here in a little bit as they match up with Hoover this weekend. But then bouncing back and beating getting beat by 7A Chelsea 38-24, but scoring some points and being in the ball game had to be a big step. When you get beat pretty bad, you play a team from the same region and compete a lot better with them. Has to give you some confidence. You're playing this game at home for Benjamin Russell. You've got to now bounce back. I mean, tough week last week. Game didn't go the way that you wanted to, not how anybody really in that community expected it to go. Now you've got to bounce back, go on the road, and go get a big region win. And a region that's really tough there with Pelham, Helena, Briarwood, Homewood, Calera, Chilton County. So this is a big, important game for both these teams. Should be a lot of fun there in Calera on Friday night.
Another interesting matchup. This 6A matchup right here is very, very interesting. Clay Chalkville at Clay Chalkville, 2-0. Pell City 0-2. But let me tell you about Pell City's 2 losses. You ready for this? Against Moody, 28-24. Against Leeds, 30-23. So you're playing 2 dominant 5A teams in 5A North down to the wire for Rush Probst. He put his guys in the fire to see what he has, because to get ready for these moments like this. Mm-hmm. Now, Coach Rush Probst, he will have that thing turned around, and it's heading in that direction. But, man, you want to talk about tough sledding? You're going to play Drew Gilmer and this Clay Chalkville bunch, who come out of the gate with a 31-0 win over Briarwood, and then turn around, had a 17-3 win versus first of all, holding Hueytown to 3. I mean, let's start right there.
Pretty impressive.
You hold Hueytown to 3 points? Are you kidding me? And, Drew Gilmer's coming into his 7th year there. These guys are dialed in. He knows these kids inside and out. This is his bunch all the way through. That's going to be a tough game for Rush, man. And but that's why you play Leeds and Moody, and that's why you play them competitive, to get in a game like this, and you're not going to be shocked at the speed and shocked by the athletes and shocked by the environment. There's not going to be more people at this game than there was at that Moody game. I can tell you right now. So the environment's not going to affect them. The speed, you can block Kavion Henderson, you can block anybody in the country. So that's why you play teams like that. This next game is going to be Oxford, who's 2-0, at Shades Valley, who's 1-1. I sat in with Sam Adams today. Again, another win for Oxford, another dominant win. They won 35-6 last week. Year 3 for Sam Adams. This is the year that a lot of people said this thing's going to take off for them. The facilities are there, the uniforms are there, the mindset's there. He's got a great quarterback. He's running a system that fits the Oxford kids. Sam Adams has it going on there. That's all I can say about it. But if you look at Shades Valley, they lost 42-13 to Stanhope, beat Fairfield 42-19. This is going to be a weird game, because last year Oxford won this game 45-13. How does Sam Adams, who's got a group of guys, who's 2-0, who's not really they beat McAdory for the first time ever by double digits, and then they had a blowout win last week. And then they beat this team last year 45-13. How does Sam Adams get his guys to believe that this is a losable game for them? That's going to be a challenge for him this week because they're going to be like, we're 2-0. We destroyed them last year. This is going to be another win.
Yeah, but you know as well as I do, Coach Ruben Nelson's going to have his group ready.
They're going to be ready to go 100%. And Sam talked about that today. He said, well, they better be ready because if they ain't ready and we don't execute, we're going to lose.
Yeah, I mean, there's athletes at Shades Valley, and
100%.
Ruben Nelson's a state championship winning coach there at Ramsey, which, you could argue is maybe the hardest place to win a state championship in the whole entire state.
Ask Coach Jackson about it. Just go and look up our average. Just look up, just go to Facebook, put in Ramsey Weight Room Average Joe Sports Talk, and then come back and talk to us.
They don't have an athletic period during the day. They have to go do their workouts and then bust to practice and don't end practice. I mean, it's crazy. They don't have an on-campus practice facility.
Or share a field with color guard, cheerleaders, and drumline and about a 50-yard field. So
yeah,
that's their options.
what makes what Ramsey's done here over the last about 6, 7, 8 years just it's incredible.
And their education.
Yeah.
What are they? Is it like third in the state?
Places, yeah.
So they're a magnet school on top of that.
Gadsden City traveling to Buckhorn. It's the Gadsden City program that has taken so many strides under Coach Ollie Smith. They beat Carver Montgomery week 1, 37-20, which is just a great win to get the season started.
Look at Reggie behind the camera.
Yeah, he's excited.
Go ahead.
And then they competed really well with Hewitt. Hewitt Trussell's very good. This is a program that is, they're going to have a chance of finishing second in that region this year if Hoover doesn't kind of get things turned around. So. Very good Hewitt Trussell program. Gadsden City was able to go toe-for-toe with them. The score does not indicate how close that game really was there towards the end. And so, to me, what their first 2 weeks this year have really shown you that Coach Ollie Smith is doing the things he told us he was going to do. Stick with him. He's going to get this ship turned right, and he's obviously been able to do that. They're going to take on a Buckhorn team who was able to beat Madison County, 42-25 in week 1. But they turned around and had a rough one with Coach Richie Busby and the Helena Huskies last week, 55-7. They got beat by Helena, but they were beat that bad last year by Helena, turned around, ended up having some really good success in their region, and that's what Coach Matt Patterson's going to look to do as well. Last year, Gadsden City was able to go and beat them 31-7, but now Gadsden City has to make the ride up to Buckhorn, play at Buckhorn, which if you don't know where Buckhorn is, it's above Huntsville. So going to be a little bit of a trip there for Gadsden City. Like we talked about earlier, how can your leaders keep everybody focused? Can they make sure that everybody's not excited about this start and goes and takes Buckhorn serious? Anytime you watch, you did it, I did it when I played. You watch film, you see a team get beat 55-7, and all you see are the mistakes. You don't respect them as much. Can these leaders of the team keep this team focused and let them know, hey, this is a really good Buckhorn team? It's also a team that won 42-25 this year as well. And I think this game on Friday night really. How Gadsden City plays, how they performs, the result of this game will tell us a lot about what Coach Ollie Smith and his group can do this season.
And if this was basketball, this would be another conversation.
And it'd be, yeah.
Shout out Caleb Holt.
He's one of the craziest players I've ever seen in my life, I'll tell you that. Yeah. If you hadn't seen Caleb Holt from Buckhorn in basketball, go check out his highlights.
Check out his interview on Average Joe's as well.
6'5", 205-pound freshman last year that scored over 30 in both state championship games.
And represented the United States in his age group. Made the U.S. national team for his age group.
I mean, he's got a chance to probably be the best basketball player to ever be produced out of the state, which is kind of crazy to say considering some of the players that have come out of here. Really big matchup here. This is not up in our area really, but want to talk about this one. Phoenix City traveling to Enterprise. Enterprise with an upset win over Auburn last week. Auburn was riding high off the win over Hoover, and I think probably got a little surprised by what Coach Brian Blackman and his group did, or Coach Ben Blackman, and his group did, coming in there, beating them 17-6. It's now his second year there, Coach Blackman at Enterprise. He comes from Spanish Fort, and everybody knows how good Spanish Fort has been. He competed against Oxford for a state championship there at Spanish Fort. And so a huge win for them last week, and now they turn around and have a big challenge with Phoenix City this week. They really get the two juggernauts knocked out really quick there with that schedule, and you better be ready to play. And they also beat Eufaula 63-14 to get the season started. Phoenix City was able to beat Hewitt 48-24 before last week beating Smith Station 51-0. This is going to be a really fun matchup here. Enterprise lost twice to Phoenix City last year, once in the regular season and then again in the postseason last year. You know that this is an Enterprise Wildcat program that is very hungry to get after Phoenix City. They've got one of the best high school stadiums in the state down there at Enterprise. It's a double-decker. They fill it up on Friday nights. It's going to be a fantastic atmosphere there, and one that will really tell us a lot about that region. And think about how big this could be for Enterprise. You get a win over Phoenix City in that region. All we've talked about here, it's been Auburn and Phoenix City matching up with each other in the semifinals of the playoffs. Now all of a sudden you can insert Enterprise into that conversation, and that could really shake up things in the South there in 7A. So that's going to be a huge matchup there, and we're really looking forward to that one. So that'll do it for our matchups that me and Bo are breaking down. We're now going to take a quick little break for those watching on Facebook, and when we come back, we will have Reggie Davis, and he will give us our Watkins heating and cooling games of the week. So stay tuned for more right here from Wenzel's in Guntersville with our Road to the Blue Map. Welcome back in to Road to the Blue Map, Week 2 with the Average Joe Sports Talk, live from Wenzel's Oyster House in Guntersville. Make sure to come check out Wenzel's. You've seen us the last 2 weeks. We've been inside in the dining room area out there. Now we're outside here in the patio area, so it just shows you all the different options that you have here at Wenzel's. About to cool down and feel great outside, and it feels great here tonight as well. So appreciate them hosting us, and this show is brought to you by Little Pink Houses. Little Pink Houses started with the concept, it takes a woman's touch to make a house a home. Our licensed builders and main designers are women. We not only build a great home, but we act as the designer, assist in fixture choices and finishes through the building out or renovations. Basically a one-stop shop for luxury renovations and new homes construction. Let us help you make the hard decisions that normally you pay an interior designer and architect to do over the cost of the builder. So thank you to Little Pink Houses for sponsoring us here on Average Joe Sports Talk. And now it is time for our Watkins Heating and Cooling Games of the Week. Shout out to Brad Watkins and Watkins Heating and Cooling. Look, it's getting to that time of year. We just talked about it. Yeah. It's going to be changing. It's going to be cold in the morning. It'll be hot during the day. You're going to need your HVAC system up and running at tip-top shape. No better person to call if you're around the Fife, Plainview, Fort Payne, Gadsden area than Watkins Heating and Cooling. And we appreciate Brad Watkins and his group partnering with us here on the show and being willing to sponsor us and allowing us to showcase all these kids, talk about all these matchups, and give all these teams the recognition that they deserve. So, Reggie, getting started with our Watkins Heating and Cooling Games of the Week. This is a big one here in the Birmingham area. Hoover traveling to Spain Park, which, you look at it and you say, that's really not that far. But when you actually go down there and go to the two schools,
right.
they're a lot further away than you would think with them
think.
both being in Hoover.
Yeah.
This is a big matchup here, though. I mean, Coach Wade Waldrop and his group looking for their first win of the season, and Coach Vakakis looking to really make a statement there in that Birmingham region.
Exactly. I mean, who would have thought, going into this game, Hoover would be 0-2, and Spain Park's 2-0. Coach Vakakis is doing a great job at Spain Park. I think he's getting things turned around, and and Coach Waldrop, he's doing a great job at Hoover. They just opened up the season against two juggernauts. You open up with Auburn, and then you open up with then you come back with a great program out of Mississippi, Oak Grove. Hoover lost that game in overtime, which tells you things are not bad at Hoover, even though they're 0-2. This is going to be a huge matchup in the city of Hoover, and I know these two teams are going to go at it Friday night. Spain Park, beat Briarwood last week, 37-6. Like I said, Coach Vakakis is doing a great job of getting that program turned around and kind of righting the ship, I guess you would say. So I'm looking forward to this one. Like I said, you're going to have a confident Spain Park team coming in and probably an angry Hoover team coming in. So this is going to be a very, very physical game, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this one's going to turn out.
Yeah, and I'll tell you how big this game is for Hoover. You lose this one, you have to play Hewitt-Trussville the very next week. Or no, you play Vestavia the very next week, then Hewitt-Trussville, and then Mountain Brook before you play Oak Mountain, who is also on the rise with the new coach there. So it's not going to get any easier. This is a very important win here for Spain Park. Another big matchup here brought to you by Watkins Heating and Cooling. Jacksonville traveling to Handley. Look, Jacksonville's had a good start to the season, but this is by far their biggest test going to Handley.
Big time. I mean, I'm not surprised that both of these teams are undefeated coming in. Handley just looks like they are just about to run through 4A, and Jacksonville, they're not a slouch either. They've got quarterback Jim Ogle and his top receiver, Kodrick Fisher. I mean, those two together, they have been a nightmare for teams in 4A. And what a way to open up region play with these two teams playing each other. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see these guys play each other again in the playoffs, because that's how loaded they both are. Handley's coming off a huge win against the 3A, defending 3A champ St. James, and they won 55-27. So that just tells you how great this team is. The 4A South is just loaded.
Yeah.
You got teams like Jacksonville, Handley, Andalusia, Anniston, and Catholic Montgomery. 4A South is loaded. I kind of want to just load up and go watch 4A South in the playoffs this year. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this one's going to come out. Like I said, this could be the first of two meetings between these two teams.
Glencoe will be traveling to Hoax Bluff. Really big matchup for these two teams that are very close to each other up here in the Gadsden area.
Yeah, these two teams, I think they call this game the backyard brawl, and when they get together, it is a brawl. These two teams don't like each other. These two communities don't like each other, at least for one night. But they're good neighbors, but they don't like each other. Glencoe's coming off that win against Weaver, 24-20. Coach Scott Martin's getting a lot of energy in that program, and that Glencoe community has been there supporting him, and that's one thing about Glencoe. That community really supports that team. Win, lose, or draw, they're going to be there supporting, and there's a lot of energy behind what Coach Martin's doing. Those guys are buying in to his system, and it looks like it's starting to pay off. And, Hoax Bluff on the flip side, they had that loss to Southside last week, 37-12, but Coach Rob, you can never count his teams out. He's a Hall of Fame coach. He's been doing this for a really long time, and when you have players like Anderson Morgan and Bryce Whitaker leading your offense, Hoax Bluff can be a very dangerous team. And Brady Kitchens, Austin Man, Aaron Man, counter for Glencoe. So this could be a very hard-hitting physical game as well.
Piedmont traveling to Sylvania. Big-time game here for Piedmont after losing their first one to Cherokee County. But talk about challenging yourself at the beginning of the year. You open up with Cherokee County, and now you get Sylvania here to open up region play. This is a big-time matchup in 3A, and you talked about earlier we could see Jacksonville Handley again. This is another matchup that we could see on down the road again.
Oh, definitely. These two teams met twice last year as well, so you could very well see this happen again. It's not time to hit that panic button in Piedmont yet. Coach Miller's a great coach. They've got plenty of athletes. They just ran into a very good Cherokee County team. And, this Sylvania team is probably just as good. They have most of their team coming back from last year after making that run to the semifinals where they lost to Piedmont 55-22. So this is a game, like I said, is a huge way to start, region play for both teams. And, it's going to be a great one.
No, it really is. I'm looking forward to that matchup. And then Our last matchup here are our Watkins Heating and Cooling Games of the Week. Vestavia at Thompson. This is a fun one here. Coach Robert Evans has the Vestavia Rebels rolling for Thompson. They were supposed to play IMG last week.
Right.
And if you're a Vestavia, you're sitting there going, hey, this is perfect timing. We'll get them right after IMG and after they play in the Kickoff Classic, and maybe they'll overlook us. Instead, that game ends up not happening due to IMG not being able to travel. So Thompson is just foaming at the mouth to get back out on the football field and compete again. But we did a coach's show with Coach Robert Evans last year. Got to talk to him week by week. I really like him. I think that he's got a great plan for what they're doing at Vestavia. This game right here will really tell us a lot about where his plan is going and where this team can go. I think this is a team that can go and compete for, could win the region if they can win this game. But if not, if they can go compete well in this game, you're talking about a program that could be right there competing for home field advantage in the postseason this year.
Man, I agree with you 100%. And that's why I chose this game, because the way Vestavia Hills started the season out, they had that huge win over 6A runner-up Mountain Brook. I was not expecting them to go out and dominate that game the way they did, and then they come back and beat a very good Homewood program 43-0. Homewood's always known, to be big up front, physical, have a very strong run game, and for Vestavia Hills to shut them out last week, that kind of makes you wonder, is this team, for real? And what a way to get that big test right out the gate is Thompson. Thompson, they've got, Anquan Fagans and Trent Seaborn and all those guys. And, Vestavia Hills, they've got their guys. So this is going to be a huge matchup in 7A Region 3. That region, I'll say it again, it's been said many times, that's the toughest region in the nation, not just the state. And so I'm looking forward to how this is going to turn out, for Vestavia Hills. I'm kind of rooting for them because, they had some difficult seasons after Coach Anderson retired, but they seem to be getting things going the right way.
Yeah, no, it should be a lot of fun there on Friday night. And I'm telling you, if Vestavia can get a win here, think about 2 weeks in a row where Fife gets beat and then Thompson gets beat the very next week. We're talking about chaos here in the state of Alabama. So
exactly.
Well, that wraps up another fun show here with us on Road to the Blue Map. Again, want to thank Watkins Heating and Cooling for sponsoring our games of the week. Make sure to go and hit up Brad Watkins and Watkins Heating and Cooling LLC there if you're around the Gadsden area, the Fife area, Plainview, Fort Payne, all around in there. Make sure to hit up Watkins Heating and Cooling. You're going to want to make sure that you have your air and heat ready to go for October, November, when it gets to that time where it's 20 degrees in the morning and 90 degrees, by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So very appreciative of them. And then again, want to thank Little Pink Houses for sponsoring this episode of Road to the Blue Map. Little Pink Houses started with the concept, it takes a woman's touch to make a house a home. Our licensed builder and main designers are women. We not only build a great home, but we act as the designer, assist in fixture choices and finishes through the build-out or reno. Basically a one-stop shop for luxury renovations and new home construction. Let us help you make the hard decisions that normally you pay an interior designer and architect to do over the cost of the builder. So thank you to Little Pink Houses, and again, thank you to Wenzel's here in Guntersville for sponsoring the show, allowing us to be here and giving us a place to come and do this each week. Make sure to come out to Wenzel's in Guntersville. If you're around the Guntersville area, come out to Wenzel's, come eat some great food, enjoy great atmosphere. As we talked about, we've been in the dining room the last couple of weeks. It's now getting to that time of year, it's starting to cool off, and this patio area out here is the perfect place to be. So for Bo Starkey and Reggie Davis, I'm Caleb Brooks. We'll be back next week, and make sure to tune in Saturday morning at 9 a.m. as we'll have our Average Joe Sports Talk Saturday morning recap show where myself, Bo Starkey, and Corey LeBounty will recap all the action from Thursday and Friday night. We'll see you again right here next week.